Hello there, and welcome to Star Wars Music Minute, where we celebrate Star Wars through music and sound. Each episode revolves around 5 cinematic minutes, so by the end of this season, you'll know something new about the music in pretty much every minute of The Last Jedi. Focusing on small chunks of the film also gives us time to explore the sonic landscape of Star Wars in a bit more detail, so we can better understand how the score, sound design, Foley, and other things interact with the cinematography and film as a whole. I'm Chrysanthe, a composer and violinist who loves Star Wars more than anything except maybe music. And today we're diving into minutes 21 through 25 of The Last Jedi. In these minutes, we see Rey telling Luke that she needs his help. The Resistance needs his help. Luke says, "You don't need Luke Skywalker." And then what happens after this is one of the most tremendous musical parts of this whole film, in my opinion. What we basically get is a 2-minute music video of Luke in exile. There's no dialogue for 2 whole minutes. Instead, we see Rey following Luke around the island, and we get a big taste, including a green milk taste, of what Luke's day-to-day life is. For context, this is a part of the story in which Luke is really trying to ostensibly shake Rey off his tail, or at least make her prove herself in some way. But she's basically just following him around like a puppy. We see him do all kinds of fun stuff, like drink milk straight from the siren, what is it? The Thala siren. We see him spearing fish, a really big one, like a gigantic fish too. We see him pole vaulting across cliffs. It's very epic Luke times. This is the Luke music video. What I'm going to do for this episode is, oh my gosh, I just love the music in it so much. Okay, I think the way that we can make sense of this most is starting from a macro perspective, then zooming in and looking at some of the details in a micro way, and then zooming back out again at the end. And then I'll kind of reframe the main points. Sorry, I hit my mic. So we can be more equipped to move on to the next scene after this. So the macro perspective is lots of music. Like I said, it's like a music video. This is not underscore. This is not like the last set of minutes where there were a lot of parts where the music was out of the way, and it certainly wasn't like the beginning where there was a lot of music, but it was very ancillary. Is that the word? It was very much accompanying the action. The sound design was front and center in some of the previous parts of the film. In this, it really is the music, but with little spurts of sound design, like when the milk is being squirted out and other key points like that, but we'll get there. So now, we'll zoom in a little bit and look at some details. In this 5 minutes, we get a few key themes that I just want to make sure we get out of the way off the top so you're not guessing. We get the Force theme, briefly. We get Rey's theme, one of Rey's few themes. We get 2 new Luke themes. You could consider it one, just part A and part B, but we get new Luke music. And I think that's very exciting because we don't get a new Luke theme. I think this is the first time we've had a new Luke theme since the original trilogy. According to Frank Lehman's musical guide, he has given these a name, but there's no official name for these. You could just call them like Old Man Luke themes or whatever. He happens to call them Luke in Exile. So again, that is what I'll refer to them here, in the hopes that Frank Lehman is on the show one day, and then I can just refer to all of his namings. I have the piano out today again because I'm going to actually do a crude piano reduction of all that is happening in these 2 minutes. This 2-minute Luke music video. First, I'm going to play through it. And I want you to think of a few things. First of all, I want you to think at any given point, is this something I recognize or is this something that feels new? I also want you to think about, does this feel intimate or does it feel big? Again, that's going to be kind of hard to tell because I'm doing what's called a piano reduction and it's just by ear. So I'm not like looking at a score or anything. I'm doing my version of this big orchestral stuff that's happening, but on the piano. So it's going to be missing a lot of key voices. There's going to be lots of parts that are missing. You're not going to really hear the full grandeur of how it's orchestrated, but at least I'll try my best to convey what's happening. But there's definitely going to be some parts skipped, just FYI. And then I also want you to think about, actually, we'll start there. I'll have more questions at the end, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to play through it and do a little bit of narration through it, and then I'm going to do it again to seal the deal. Does that sound good? Cool. Let me review the themes first. Actually, no. Should I play Luke's new themes first? Or are we just gonna... Yeah, I'll play Luke's new stuff first. So the Luke in Exile themes go. That's the gist of it. The second part to that is wait, yeah, that's right. It's this. Hopefully that was close enough. The point to consider, because it does go to a few different keys after that. The point to remember with that is basically the rhythm and the like minor tonality. So those are them. We actually get a little bonus motif too, but it's not really one that has a theme. It's just one that's associated with the island. So you could call it like an incidental motif. And it's basically, it's just a set of arpeggios. The notes were approximate there, but the point is a half-step modulation. I'll explain all this again as I'm playing through it. It'll make much more sense in context, too. All right. Whew. Now it'll hopefully make more sense as I narrate through it. Let's go. I'm nervous. Okay. Rey says, "There is no light left in Kylo Ren. He's only getting stronger. The First Order will control all the major systems within weeks. We need your help. We need the Jedi Order back. We need Luke Skywalker." This is in the background. Force theme. Luke says, "You don't need Luke Skywalker." And then the Force theme disintegrates. Rey, "Did you hear a word I just said?" Luke, "You think what? I'm going to walk out with a laser sword and face down the whole First Order? What did you think was going to happen here? You think I came to the most unfindable place in the galaxy for no reason at all?" This is his theme, by the way, playing in the background. Luke in Exile. "Go away." Rey, "I'm not leaving without you." And then we have this. It comes in mostly in the strings and it does a big crescendo. And this is when it goes into the music video. What I'm calling the music video. that's all you hear, and then it stops, and it's overtaken by, I'm not going to make the moo sound, but there's kind of a moo. It's like, moo. I guess I am going to make it. Nope. But this is the part where it kind of gets quiet. There's still music, but it's Luke's saraband playing in the background, while this is the part where he's getting him some green milk and does some modulation thing, does this thing, and then we get the arpeggios. As it goes a half step higher, like I told you, the part with the arpeggios is that it gets higher. It's a sudden key change. That's when he's climbing the cliff. So it kind of mirrors, I'll do that again, it mirrors the fact that the arpeggios do a key change higher. And this is when he's scaling the cliff before pole vaulting across it. So I'll do it again. Higher. And then we get Luke's other theme. It's a fanfare, and this is as he's pole vaulting across the cliff, and it's like super epic and stately. Softer. And then we get back to Luke's other theme, and this is when I play the next note, that is the exact moment that he spears the fish. And then you hear thunder. So what I'm about to play is him spearing the fish, and then thunder, and it's him walking up the hill. It's like raining. He's drenched. He looks like really hardcore and rugged, and it's like this gigantic fish. It's like the pinnacle of his music video. Actually, there are so many pinnacles in this music video. But anyway, the strings are just going wild. To a close. As the music fades out, Luke says, "You're wasting your time." And this is when we're back to dialogue. Luke says, "You're wasting your time." We hear the Sith whispers creeping in, we hear solo oboe, solitary oboe. Like the orchestration goes from really, really big and epic and grand, it's Luke's music video, to this very intimate inside of Rey's head. So it's a solo oboe, you hear it, but then you hear some strings bubbling up, and that's like the point of view makes it seem like it's Rey's internal experience. And then we get Luke, this is as Rey enters that creepy tree cave. The cave tree. Luke says, "Who are you?" And as he says that, there's a sound vacuum. That's the only way, that's the best way I can describe it. Suddenly, it feels like you're in I've never been in one of these, but this is what I assume it sounds like one of those float tanks or something. Just something where it's like all of the life has been sucked up, and it's just those two people, and we're overhearing something, and it feels, it's almost like the absence of all this other noise is quite an event, and I think it has a lot of impact there. That's about it for this scene. I mean, they do have dialogue, but there's actually no music in it. It kind of continues with the sound vacuum, though you do hear a lot of echo as well. And it's just very intimate. And we'll get to more of that at the very end, but I really want to focus on the Luke music video. So let's go back. I have like really messy handwritten notes on my iPad with musical notation that, again, don't look to what I'm playing as anything remotely exact. It's just the basic idea. Okay. Now, while we're in here, deep in these weeds of this 2-minute thematic progression, let's talk about the extrapolations we could potentially make from what we are hearing here. I don't think any of this has been confirmed by John Williams, but I just want to give you an idea of questions that we could ask and things that we could discover that may hold meaning for us. Just like with literary analysis, music analysis is subjective. So multiple people can take the same base, the same evidence, and come to different conclusions, or not even just conclusions, but just it might hold different meaning for different people. So I want to make sure I'm leaving that door open so you don't think that the way I'm seeing it is the clear and natural solution to the evidence that is in front of us. All right, so what I think is interesting here is that we hear both Luke and Rey's theme together, kind of interspersed. It's mostly Luke's new stuff, but they feel related to me in a way that I'm not sure how can I define it. Harmonically, they are kind of similar to me, and I'll tell you what I mean. So if I normalize them so they're both in A minor, Rey's theme would be like, any of Rey's themes. I guess they'd be like. This is Luke's. I'm just going to mess around right now and swap between them so you can hear how kind of mix and match they may be. I'm going to need to go up an octave. They basically just dance around this very plain minor key. They play around in a similar mode, basically. So did you notice there that in all of that, my left hand, or basically what's playing the part that's not the melody, it hasn't changed chords at all. I'm still playing the same. And same with Luke's. Suspensions and complications aside, that rings pretty similar in my book, especially if you consider that a lot of the other main character themes that we get are very harmonically complex. I was just trying to play Leia's theme a couple weeks ago, and I swear there are so many chord changes and like all these complex, like it was so much more complex than I even realized. Rey's theme, from ever since The Force Awakens, like it immediately struck me as just a very open theme, like because it's just so open to other keys being put on it. It's so open to being a good base for something else. It's just a very like, I don't want to say blank slate. It's just a very it's a very open theme. That's the best way I can describe it. I'll try to think of a better description for what I mean, but hopefully emotionally it makes sense. It actually reminded me of Dvorak's New World Symphony. Ray's theme did, and which I thought was a funny comparison. I'm sure it wasn't intentional, but I'm sure that a lot of the same emotions that go into that Dvorak piece, the New World Symphony, which is sort of like, I don't know, you're in a new world. It was pretty apt for Ray as well. Luke in Exile, his themes are also pretty open. Not just that one, but no chord changes. So that's one thing that I just wanted to bring up. Another thing is, at the end of this, something really interesting happens in the music. I'm going to play examples so that you really hear what I'm talking about, but usually when a last note comes up, you hear more of a, let me play you two options. But instead of doing a fully voiced chord, the last note of this is a unison A. There's no other notes to color this chord. It's like, it's a mood to end something on a unison. It's kind of rare that something, especially a big orchestral suite or like a big orchestral moment, it's kind of rare that it ends up just at a unison. Now let me play you. Did you hear that? It's just... It's like the finality of just having a single note as the button to this whole thing makes a statement. I'll rewind a little bit more so you can hear what goes up to it. This is when he spears the fish. So many layers in the orchestra. And then it just closes on the one note. And right about now, you're wasting your time. Oh, I get chills. Now, I want to challenge you to listen to one more detail that I'm going to point out. And I think this is like my favorite detail because it ends on one unison note, which means basically all of the instruments, they go from playing all these different things, like the horns are like, and the violins are like, hope that was a good representation. And they come together on this final note, but they don't actually converge at the same time, which I think is interesting. It could have been... But instead, the horns arrive first to the A, and the strings, it almost sounds like they just messed up, and there's a little bit running a little bit behind. It goes like that. Pure speculation here, but for me, hearing Luke and Ray, hearing their themes juxtaposed and sort of in the same 2 minutes, hearing them played one after another. They're both very open. They both feel related to me. They're both on this island. They kind of, she's following him around. There's this whole, there's something between them. They're the two Last Jedi, potentially. And the way that they kind of converge in that A, and the way that one of the strings just are late and they are just following around the other one, to me, I'm like, it makes me feel like that's Luke and then Rey. And their little orchestral dance that just happened for 2 minutes is now coming to an end. And it's like Luke plops down first and then Rey. Speculation, but listen, you'll hear how it happens at different times. So basically, the violins, the strings, they finish with this. So here's my crude piano version of that. That's exaggerated, but now with that, I will play that whole thing again, semi-narrating, but hopefully you have more an idea in your head of what's going on. And then we'll zoom out again, and then we'll wrap this up. I don't want to overload you with too much stuff. All right. There's no light left in Kylo Ren. He's only getting stronger. The First Order will control all the major systems within weeks. We need your help. We need the Jedi Order back. We need Luke Skywalker. You don't need Luke Skywalker. Did you just hear a word I said? You think what? I'm going to walk out with a laser sword and face down the whole First Order? What did you think was going to happen here? You think I came to the most unfindable place in the galaxy for no reason at all? Go away. I'm not leaving without you. This is the green milk part. And the moo-ing. This is kind of soft because you can really, this is where the sound design does come in. And then we're about to get to the arpeggios as he's climbing the mountain. Now he's about to dive. He's so epic. Sorry. And then the spearing. They resolve on that A. And it's so peaceful, kind of. You're wasting your time. So forth. And then it's the next section where it's them in isolation, like we talked about before. So, yeah, wow. If you're following along with the soundtrack, this is the end of Ahch-To Island, which is track 2. So now we are done with that track. So let's zoom out. There are a few things not unique to this, but that I think will be helpful for us to keep in mind as we consider the music and sound basically in any Star Wars, or probably in any film. So I have some leading questions. Question number 1 is, how is the music marking the passage of time? As we've talked about in previous episodes, music can really have a big impact on your sense of how much time is elapsing in any given scene or minute. In the moments where there's no music, so far in this film, it's been when Finn is waking up out of his coma and talking to Poe about where's Rey. It happens when Rey enters Luke's hut. Happens now. It happens when Kylo Ren is speaking to Snoke. It happens in the heavy dialogue scenes where there are tense things happening. And in those scenes, there was almost no music, or it was very background. And in those scenes, you got the sense, due to the conversation, that we were watching something happening in real time. We were watching a conversation, not a montage over months or days. In Luke's music video, I guess that's my new name for this scene. In Luke's moment where we see this montage of him doing all these things on the island, we have this huge orchestral score, and not huge in a bombastic way necessarily, but it very much is like the Luke show. This is Luke's theme music, and he's doing all these cool things, and we're going to do a lot of cool stuff in the music. And we're not even going to have any talking. We're not going to have any sound design pretty much. And who knows how much time is happening between all these cuts, cinematography-wise. So that is question number 1, is the music giving you clues about how much time is passing? The second one, I sort of hinted at it, is how does the music mirror, complement, or contrast the cinematography? If you ever feel like you need a hook to start to formulate your thoughts about music and don't know where to start, I personally sometimes think about, well, what is happening on screen? What does the shot look like? Is it a very big shot? Is it like a drone shot where you're seeing a whole island? Is it really small and you're just focusing on someone's fingers brushing against their robes? So really, is the shot wide? Is it close up? Is it moving? Is it panning? Is it doing something else that is interesting, that might be complemented by the music? So far, I think we're seeing some parallels between the music and the cinematography when it comes to the grandness of the arrangement. So in all the shots that we've seen of Ahch-To Island, like from an aerial view and from, it's such a picturesque location. And whenever we are seeing something that's not Luke's hut, I feel like we've gotten some pretty sweeping music. Like, this isn't the music that you put in the background when two people are talking about, how something, plans for destroying the dreadnought or whatever. It's very much like I think about E.T. actually, because E.T. is a prime example of a film that does this, and another John Williams score, of course. That big scene where where they take flight, and it's just like, wow. Time stops a little bit. You're just in this moment, and you're letting the music. It's E.T.'s music video moment, and the music is really directing the emotions and the flow, and also that was also a very big shot too. It's like you're literally seeing people flying in the sky, and an alien. You're seeing people flying in the sky and over the moon and whatever. So I think a lot of the times the music and the visuals have this way of lining up. And when they don't line up, oftentimes it's so jarring that it also gives you a clue. Like when we were talking about in this scene where Rey is hearing the Sith whispers, well, I assume, that it's Rey hearing them because we see on camera, we see that we're looking at Rey and she looks like she's alone and she's looking around. Like I feel like there's indication that this is not a sound that everyone would be able to hear. It's a sound that is like very much inside of Rey's head. Then we hear that solitary oboe come in, and it's very much, it's a very stark contrast to what we were hearing before with the big island and the sweeping orchestra and like all the crashes of thunder and lightning. We're just inside of Rey's head and it's just her. But then we do hear some intense strings start to bubble up. But because it's juxtaposed with this intimate image of just Rey, it signals to me that what's bubbling up is inside of her head and it's inside of her emotions, and it is very discordant. It's discordant for her too. It is a big deal. And my last question is just think in general when it comes to music. Does this feel big or small? Does this feel grand or intimate? What marks these things in the music? Where are their changes? So hopefully that gives you a little bit to think about as you continue watching this film or watch other films. So to recap, they were, how is the music marking the passage of time or not? How does the music mirror, complement, or contrast the cinematography? And then just a general question, big or small? Is it grand or intimate? Like, what is your just gut sense of what it is without being able, you don't have to be able to recognize this is a chamber orchestra. This is just a horn section. This is just even before you get there, just think, does this feel big or small? Bigger or smaller than the last thing I heard? And that is a really good that's a really good jumping point. On a final note, I will leave you with one more tidbit. And that is regarding the Ahch-To track. And it's regarding the organization of music in the scores versus the soundtracks. The topic we all love and that sort of infuriates us when we're listening to the soundtrack and we're like, parts of it are out of order. Well, as you could hear, we got to part 1 of the Ahch-To track in minutes, I think, 6 through 10, 11 through 15. And it was when we were first getting to the island. But then, right after that, we were cutting to the scene with Kylo Ren and Snoke. So, of course, the music switched to, I think it was Snoke's boudoir. And because of the cuts in the movie, obviously there's going to be cuts in the music too. So we only got to part 1 of Ahch-To before, and here we're finishing up the Ahch-To track. So a lot of the times those discrepancies from the soundtrack to the motion picture experience could be due to the simple fact of cuts and scene changes. It's not like you get all of the Ahch-To stuff all at once, just to correspond with track 2, then you never get it again. No. So yeah, that's what I wanted to say about that. So what are your favorite sound-related moments in The Last Jedi? Whether it's the minutes we've already covered or upcoming ones, I would really love to know not only what your favorite ones are, but also which ones you have questions about, which ones you don't like, or even just unattached to opinion, just things you notice. Because if you let me know, and I haven't recorded that episode yet, then I can probably cover it when we get there. So if you have anything to say about the music in The Last Jedi, or any Star Wars, because I will continue with other movies after this, feel free to send me an email. I'm at podcast@starwarsmusicminute.com, or you can tweet me at Chrysanthe, or click the link in the show notes to submit an anonymous question or request. Name is optional on that one. I know some people are embarrassed by their questions or maybe don't want a shout out or whatever. So you can always just submit on that form. It'll just ask you to put in your question, and then there's like an optional field for your name and social media handle. Totally optional, again. Last but not least, I'm going to start, I have a bunch of notes for this episode. There will be show notes, but in general, I take my personal notes on manuscript paper, digital manuscript paper. So here we go. I'm trying to show it, but it's failing. So if looking at my notes is something that interests you, let me know, because I might start putting them up for pay what you want, donate what you want to get the notes for each episode, which would be a way for me to, raise some funds for the podcast. But until then, I haven't set that up or anything yet. So that's not a thing yet. But if you are my patron, I'm going to be posting the notes for you regardless, like starting already with the last episode. Okay, I'm a certified rambler, so I need to cut myself off right now because since I don't have a guest, I need to make sure I remember that I'm recording a podcast and not talking to myself for hours. So, yes, thank you for listening. Tune in again next week for musical coverage of The Last Jedi, minutes 26 through 30. And with that, thank you so much for listening to Star Wars Music Minute.